Hi friends, have you ever noticed something strange like this? Suppose you explain about something carefully, clearly, using the simplest words possible, but the person in front of you nods, agrees, even says, "I understand," but then nothing changes. The same mistake happens again and again. The same confusion returns again. The same conversation repeats like a broken record. At first, you think it's a communication problem, so you explain again, slower this time, with more detail. But still, nothing sticks. And that's when a dark thought creeps in. What if the problem isn't how you're explaining? What if the problem is who you're explaining to? 500 years ago, Niccolò Machiavelli, the man who wrote the playbook on power, discovered something uncomfortable about human nature, something most people refuse to accept. He realized that intelligent people waste their power by making one critical mistake. They assume everyone thinks like them, but they don't. In this two-part series, I'm going to show you Machiavelli's brutal truth about dealing with people who will never understand you, and more importantly, why you should stop trying. This isn't about being cruel. It's about being effective. Because once you understand this, you'll stop feeling frustrated, and people will start treating you very differently. So let's begin. Most people don't fail to understand because your explanation is unclear. They fail because they don't process the world the way you do. Machiavelli spent years observing kings, generals, and politicians. He watched intelligent leaders explain their decisions carefully, logically, rationally. And he watched those same leaders lose respect, lose authority, and sometimes lose their heads. All because they explained too much. Because most people don't respond to logic first. They respond to three things: position, authority, and certainty. When someone keeps asking you to explain yourself, "Why did you do that? Why does it have to be this way? Can you explain again?" Have you ever noticed that? What are they really doing? On the surface, it looks like curiosity. But Machiavelli saw something darker. They're testing you. They're probing to see if your decision is firm or negotiable. Each question you answer makes them feel more equal to you. Each explanation you give turns a decision into a discussion. And once something becomes a discussion, you've already lost. Every time you explain yourself, three things happen. First, you lose your own momentum. Decisions that should move forward get stuck in endless debate. Second, you reopen closed matters. Things that were settled become uncertain again. Third, you seem weak. You start to look like someone seeking approval, not someone giving direction. Machiavelli believed that momentum was everything. A leader who constantly stops to justify their decisions looks uncertain, even if they're not. And uncertainty spreads faster than logic. Soon people start questioning everything. Not because your decisions are wrong, but because questioning has become normal. This is how authority dies, not through rebellion, but through endless conversation. Now, Machiavelli never said, "Never explain yourself." That would be stupid. What he said was this: choose carefully who gets access to your reasoning. Some people deserve explanations, the ones who think strategically, who can handle complexity, who use information responsibly. To them, you give reasons. But to most people, you give outcomes. Not because you're cruel, but because it works. When people see that your decisions stand firm, that they don't bend with every question, they stop testing you. And when the testing stops, respect begins. The mistake isn't explaining once. The mistake is explaining again and again to someone who's already shown they can't or won't process it. Machiavelli learned to sort people quickly, not by education or intelligence, but by behavior. He watched for 3 signals. First, how they react to decisions. When you make a decision, some people simply adjust and move forward. Others immediately start asking questions, looking for exceptions, reopening settled matters. The first group doesn't need explanations to comply. The second group doesn't want explanations. They want leverage. Machiavelli's rule was simple. If someone accepts outcomes first, they might deserve reasoning later. If someone resists outcomes, reasoning won't help them. Second, the questions they ask. Not all questions are equal. Capable people ask forward-moving questions like, "What's the goal?" or "What happens next?" People who undermine authority ask positional questions like, "Why me?" or "Who decided this?" These aren't questions seeking understanding. They're questions testing power. Third, how they handle simple instructions. Before giving someone complex reasoning, watch how they handle simple direction. Do they follow it? Do they look for loopholes? Do they delay? Someone who struggles with simple clarity will drown in complex explanation. So instead of explaining more, Machiavelli simplified his demands and watched the reactions. Those who complied earned trust. Those who resisted earned distance. Here's the trap most intelligent people fall into. They think explanation creates respect. It doesn't. This is why Machiavelli warned leaders never to expose their reasoning to everyone. Not because the reasoning was bad, but because it would be misused. Machiavelli believed every leader needed a small inner circle, people who could think ahead, handle complexity, and be trusted with sensitive information. This group got full explanations, context, and strategy. Everyone else got clear direction and expectations, not because the others were worthless, but because systems collapse when everyone feels entitled to full understanding. Clarity is essential, but clarity is not the same as equality of access. When you first stop explaining yourself constantly, something uncomfortable happens. Not to you, to them. People are used to explanations. Explanations make them feel involved, valued, important. When that suddenly stops, they feel unsettled. They don't know where they stand anymore. At first, they'll try to pull you back into the old pattern. They no longer feel in control. This is the test. Most people fail it. They feel the tension and rush to fix it with another explanation. And the moment they do, the pressure stops. Not because the person understands, but because the old order is restored. But if you hold your position, something different happens. After the initial discomfort, most people adjust. They stop asking the same questions. They accept that not everything is open for discussion. This acceptance doesn't come from understanding. It comes from recognition that your decisions don't move just because they're uncomfortable. And that recognition changes everything. People start listening more closely because they know you won't repeat yourself endlessly. Your words begin to carry real weight, not because they're longer or clearer, because they're final. Now, a small number of people won't adjust. They'll escalate. They become sarcastic, passive-aggressive, dismissive. They question your motives instead of your reasoning. This isn't confusion. This is resistance. These people relied on demanding explanation as a way to slow things down or maintain influence. When that tool disappears, frustration shows itself. Machiavelli would say, This is not someone you try harder with. This is someone you manage carefully or keep at distance. Silence is a filter. It separates those who can function with structure from those who need constant reassurance. It shows you who respects outcomes versus who only respects endless discussion. When you stop explaining everything, people start filling in the gaps themselves. They assume there's a reason, even if they don't know it. They assume there's intention behind your decisions. This works in your favor. Machiavelli knew that people fear what they don't fully understand, but they also respect it. Mystery creates gravity. Overexposure dissolves it. This doesn't mean you become silent about everything. It means you stop narrating your thinking to people who can't use it properly. You let results speak. You let consistency speak. You let time speak. So, here's what we've learned in this chapter. First, most people don't process the world through logic. They respond to position, authority, and certainty. Second, over-explaining destroys your power by turning decisions into discussions. Third, not everyone deserves access to your reasoning. Choose wisely. Fourth, when you stop explaining, people test you, so hold your ground. Fifth, silence is a filter that reveals who truly respects you. This is just the beginning. We've uncovered why explaining too much weakens you, but there's a much deeper question we haven't answered yet. When should you explain? How do you use explanation strategically instead of reactively? And, most importantly, what happens to you internally when you stop seeking everyone's understanding? That's what we'll explore in Chapter 2, because Machiavelli's most powerful insight wasn't about controlling others. It was about mastering yourself. If this chapter opened your eyes to something you've been doing wrong, hit that like button. And if you want to see Chapter 2, where we go even deeper into Machiavelli's strategy for using silence and selective explanation as weapons of influence, subscribe and turn on notifications. The real power move isn't what you say. It's knowing when to say nothing at all. See you in Chapter 2.